Let's begin on Chapter 2, Revival. The helicopter carried them into the heart of whiteness. The huge ice sheet of the interior lay spread out beneath them in all directions, marked here and there by patches of dense, low-lying fog. Straight ahead loomed the trans-Antarctic mountains, cold and white like jagged teeth in an open mouth. They sat inside the belly of the Sikorsky, cramped by supplies, sleds, panting sled dogs, all the precautions necessary for sustaining life in an alien, forbidden world. "Why can't we use snowmobiles instead of the sleds?" Kelly asked, shouting over the steady pounding of the rotor blades. "Snowmobiles are just toys!" Jack shouted back. "They're not reliable! Engines get clogged with snow and ice! Motor freezes up! Damn things stall out and you're dead! That don't happen with dogs!" "Besides," Troy added, "if things get desperate enough, you can always eat the dogs." She stared at him as he sat chewing beef jerky. The helicopter soon took a dip, jostling supply bundles and setting the sled dogs howling. Kelly grabbed hold of a nearby bundle. "What was that?" "Just the descent," Troy said. "We're going down." "It didn't feel like that back at Deep Core Station." "This is the interior, Miss Sawyer. Landings are rough out here. If you come down in one piece, you're lucky." They stood outside the helicopter, blades cutting through wind and snow as the last of the supplies were loaded off. "I'm freezing," Kelly said, her mouth protected by a thermal mask. "How cold is it out here?" Troy checked the weather gauge. "About minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit." "And with the wind chill?" "Anybody's guess." "My suit must not be working. I can't stop shivering." "Your suit's fine. Shivering's a normal adaptation to extreme cold. You'll get used to it. Now you know why the peninsula is called the Banana Boat." Kelly frowned at him, but he had already turned to Jack. "How far do we have to walk before we find this thing?" Troy asked. "About 2 miles. "That doesn't sound bad. You haven't walked it yet." "First mile's uphill." Jack pointed to a wind-blown slope in the distance. "Last mile's downhill to the valley with the glacier," Jack said. "So we get to climb both ways, going in and coming back?" "You got it, man." Shivering in her thermal suit, Kelly came up beside them. "What were you out here looking for in the first place?" she asked. "Mineral deposits? Oil reserves?" Jack glanced at Troy, then said, "Ice samples, Kelly. We were back there collecting ice samples." "Ice samples, right. Project Deep Core's nothing but a land grab by the Department of Energy. You're down here to look for oil reserves and mineral deposits. You don't care that Article 7 of the Antarctic Declaration of 1984 specifically prohibits exploration for or exploitation of mineral resources." Troy finished her sentence for her. "I've read it too, Miss Sawyer. Like Jack said, we're going down here for the ice samples. Why don't you go back to the helicopter and warm up inside for a few minutes before it takes off?" Her eyes widened behind the goggles. "It's leaving?" "It'll come back and get us when we're finished," Jack said. "But it can't just sit there like a taxi with the engine running. Rotors would get clogged, same as the snowmobiles." She turned to Troy. "How long is this job going to take?" "That depends." "On what?" "What we find once we get there." She looked at both men, then turned and ran back towards the helicopter, still shivering inside her thermal suit. Jack lowered his voice to Troy. "She'd go ballistic if she knew what Tarosh was really having us look for. Keep your mouth shut, and maybe she won't find out." As they began their descent into the valley, they entered a world of fog. It came over them like sudden blindness, cold, damp, impenetrable. Their progress slowed to a crawl. Walking became uncertain and dangerous, with every step a possible plunge into an unseen, snow-covered crevasse, or off the edge of a narrow trail that wound its way down into the glaciated valley. They let the dogs go first, trusting their animal instincts. After hours of inching downward through the fog, Steve Oldman, the man in front with the dogs, called out, "This feels like the right place, Jack! Not that nobody could see nothing with all this damn fog." "Let's break here," said Jack, "and wait for it to lift." "Ain't gonna lift no time soon, Jack. Then we'll wait for it to clear some." Even as he spoke, the fog lifted slightly, revealing a deep valley filled with an immense blue ice glacier. Tendrils of dense fog curled like smoke around the edges of thick blue ice. "Is that it?" Kelly asked. "Guess so," Jack said. "You guess? You didn't mark it?" Jack looked away, but Troy said, "Marks don't keep very well out here in the interior, Miss Sawyer. The wind blows them away or rubs them out." Kelly squinted through her iced-over goggles at the blank glacier wall in front of them. "You couldn't see anything inside there anyway. That ice is filthy." "It's just scarred up by the wind," Troy said. "Once we polish it up a bit, we'll be able to see inside." She saw several team members begin to scour the surface of the ice wall with what looked like portable buffing wheels. As they worked on it, the surface turned slowly from opaque white to a vision of crystalline clarity. The inside now stood revealed before them, as if the entire glacier had been fashioned from cut glass. Kelly raised her goggles and stared into the frozen world. It was like looking inside a brilliantly clear ice cube, magnified thousands of times. Blue-tinted light rippled before her eyes. Giant air bubbles hung suspended in the ice, like crystal globes floating through space. "It's so clear," she whispered. "Purest water on Earth," Troy said, "just like they claim in those commercials. Except this is no bull. It really is the purest water in the world, frozen millions of years before there were cars or jumbo jets or dirty humans too. There it is!" Jack pointed to a spot deep within the ice, where an object about the size of a grapefruit rested inside a cleft of the rock wall. As the other team members stared at it, wisps of fog drifted across the polished surface of ice. "A rock," Troy said, "if I ever saw one." "Rock hell," Kelly said. "That's an egg." "It's not big enough to be a dinosaur egg." "They weren't that big. The largest dinosaur eggs ever found aren't much bigger than cannonballs." Troy turned to Jack. "How do we get inside there?" "Guess we could always cut our way in. That might take us the rest of the summer. You got a better idea?" "I say we blast. This thing's a glacier, Troy. You could stir up more than you mean to. Get us all buried in an avalanche down here, so the next team comes out and finds us frozen in the ice too. Just like that goddamn egg. It's the only way to get it out fast, Jack. Besides, even cutting could cause structural faults in the glacier and bring it down upon us. Either we blast or forget it." "What are you talking about?" Kelly asked. "Strategy, Miss Sawyer. How to get this precious egg of yours out of the ice before the Antarctic winter closes in." "I don't want the egg removed or even touched. I thought we agreed on that back at Deep Core Station." "The only thing we agreed on was to take you along on this fool's errand. And that wasn't agreement so much as blackmail. Even Tarosh is scared of CNN." "You want to set off explosives?" "That's the only way I know how to blast." Kelly's mouth dropped open. "I can't believe it. I got ultrasound equipment here, Darrow. We can find all we need to know about that egg without cutting any of the ice away. You go ahead and use your equipment now, Miss Sawyer, while we're getting the gelinite ready. You son of a bitch! Who do you think you are? You can't just start setting off explosives in the Antarctica. That's in complete violation of every treaty ever written. I'm going to report you, and not just to the EPA. I'm going to report you to the UN and the World Court. Whatever pleases you, Miss Sawyer, but you won't be able to file any reports until we get back to base camp. And by that time, I'll have the egg out of the ice. Why are you doing this, Darrow? You don't even care about that egg. You think it's some kind of rock. All I know is Tarosh wants that rock, and Tarosh runs Deep Core Station, and that's who I work for right now. What does Tarosh want with the dinosaur egg? I have no idea, Miss Sawyer. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got some gelinite to prepare. You know what you're doing? She called after him. You could be destroying a legacy from over 60 million years ago. But Troy was already unpacking the explosives from one of the supply bundles, and he did not stop to answer her. When the gelinite was in place and the fuse set, Kelly tried one last time to talk Troy out of it. You're making a terrible mistake, you know that. It won't be the first time. He ignited the fuse, crouched behind several large boulders. They all watched the narrow plume of smoke rising in the frigid air as it raced towards the explosive. I hope it blows us all to hell, Kelly said. If I packed it wrong, you may just get your wish. Jack laughed, but there was not much mirth to it. The fuse seemed to sputter out. Must have gotten wet, Jack said. Yeah, Troy agreed. Should have tried an electric. The blast came then, with a force that seemed to tear the glacier asunder and shatter the foundation of the valley itself. The sound of the explosion assaulted them in shockwaves, followed by huge chunks of ice, as big as the boulders they crouched behind. The air of the valley, when they could hear it again, rang with the sounds of splintering ice and falling rocks and rolling reverberations from the blast. Gelinite smoke filled their lungs, making them wheeze and cough. Ice splinters were still falling when Troy got to his feet and looked at the result of his handiwork. A large opening had been gouged into the surface of the glacier, like a gaping mouth of a deep cavern. Inside the newly formed ice cave, broken glacier shatters littered the way towards the rock wall and the cleft where the egg rested, freed from the ice at last. You destroyed it! Kelly shouted at him, brushing ice splinters from her thermal suit. It's probably nothing but bits of eggshell and fossilized embryo by now. Troy squinted through the shifting clouds of smoke. Still looks like the same to me, but there's only one way to find out for sure. He started forward, ice fragments crunching underfoot. Kelly grabbed him. What do you think you're doing? Seeing if there's enough left for a dinosaur omelet. You're not going in there without me. I thought you didn't want to move it or even touch it. That's before you blew the hell out of everything. We gotta take that egg out now to protect it. Listen, Jack said, raising a hand. Hear that? They all strained to listen, ears still stunned by the force of the blast. They could hear crackling sounds in the distance, sharp and loud, like an amplified rifle shot. Whole damn mountainsides cave-in anew mini glaciers, Jack said. We could be caught in an avalanche any minute. Nobody ought to go inside that glacier right now. We'll be careful, Troy promised. The temperature plunged suddenly as they stepped into the ice cave, colder than anything Troy had ever experienced in all his time in Antarctica. Kelly started to shiver uncontrollably. You ought to go back, he said, his own teeth chattering. You go back, Darrow. I want that egg. Clouds of warm vapor billowed from the mouths as they spoke, moisture freezing on contact with their thermal masks. They made their way over the broken shards, underfoot, slipping and stumbling towards the rock wall and the egg. A sharp crack sounded overhead. Troy looked up to see a thin fissure snake its way across the ceiling of the ice cave. Whole thing's starting to come down. We should go back. So go! I'm not leaving without the egg. He watched her for a few seconds, scrambling over ice shards ahead of him, shivering from the cold and from somewhere more than the cold now. He hurried to catch up with her. They found the egg inside the cleft of rock wall, where it had first been placed over 65 million years ago. It was still encased in a small block of ice, like a jewel in amber, frozen throughout worlds of time. Blue light filtered down through the ice walls of the glacier, making the egg look transitory and unreal, a vision from a fitful dream. Troy took an ice knife from his pocket of his thermal suit. We can cut it out of that block in no time. Keep your power tools to yourself, Darrow. This ice has protected it for 65 million years. We'll just leave it the way it is. You can't drag a block of ice that heavy. If you shut up and help me. As Kelly attempted to move the ice block, it slipped from her grasp. She gave a startled cry, ah! And Troy tried to catch it, but the block skidded down the rock wall and smashed against the cave floor in a spray of ice shards. The egg, undamaged, rolled across the slick surface of the cave floor, spinning sideways like a top. Kelly started after it, skidding on the ice as she ran. The egg rolled up to the edge of a fissure and fell in. Kelly hesitated at the edge, then jumped in after it. Kelly! Troy shouted at her. He reached the opening in time to see her sliding down the jagged ice walls, the egg rolling on ahead of her. Both came to a sudden stop at the bottom of the fissure. You okay? He called down to her. Yeah, she answered, echoing up from inside. How's the egg? Before she could answer, a loud crack, gray, broke from the ceiling above, followed by a shower of ice chunks, some of them large as metal girders. Kelly screamed inside the fissure. Troy took out his ice knife. Stay there, don't move. What are you doing? Coming down to get you. Using the ice knife as a pigeon, he worked his way down the wall of the fissure. Another crack came from the ceiling. More ice chunks rained down on them. It's going to bury us alive, Kelly cried. Here, he reached out a hand. Give me the egg. Kelly clutched it to her breast. No, nothing doing. I fell all the way down here after it. I'm not letting it. The crack this time seemed to shake the whole cave. Kelly yelped as a huge chunk of ice fell a few feet away from them. All right, Troy said. Go ahead and be stubborn. Hang on to the egg with one hand, but hang on to me with the other. He scaled the side of the fissure wall, using the ice knife to gain traction. The overhead cracks came at regular intervals now. The shower of ice chunks fell non-stop. After they reached the top of the fissure, they ran through the falling ice, the entire cave reverberating with the sounds of the glacier collapsing on itself. Outside the cave mouth, Troy signaled to the others. Run! Glacier's coming down! The whole goddamn valley's coming down, Jack said. The glacier burst apart at that moment. The team members scattered and ran for cover. Gigantic sheets of ice broke loose from the mass, falling through the air in slow motion. One of them landed on Steve Oldman and his dogs, crushing them beneath its frozen weight, their screams drowned by the roar of falling ice. When the avalanche finally stopped, the survivors dug themselves out to find the valley buried in snow and ice once again, reabsorbed into the harsh white landscape of Antarctica.